This here is a remarkable,
Welcome to the Wedding of Distinction podcast, a program for the unique bride and groom. The Wedding of Distinction is a concept where brides and grooms want something better, not just your average wedding. We have the tools to make that happen. Now, here's your host, Mike Fernino.
Hello, everybody. I hope you're well. I hope everything is fantastic this holiday season and wishing you safety and health. You know, 2020, what do you want? I mean, safety and health, that's the greatest gift that we could possibly have. You know, I haven't done a podcast in a while, and I certainly have missed it. You know, a lot of things have been going on, but I'm back to it, and we've got some wonderful episodes that will be coming to the Wedding of Distinction. Tonight, we're going to talk about dancing, which is just a fabulous way to celebrate. And hopefully, with vaccines on the horizon and 2021 being a whole new year, we're going to have a lot of reason to celebrate and dance next year in 2021. But how many times have you been a wedding guest at a wedding reception and the bride and groom awkwardly stood there on the dance floor as if it was the freshman high school dance? Awkward and tight during their first dance that is supposed to be one of the most memorable moments of their lives. Some people are just natural dancing together, and others, well, they really need some assistance. Sometimes folks would like to do something that's a little bit more exciting or dramatic or a big surprise to everybody in the room. If you have a wedding coming up, you should consider taking dance lessons. Have you ever considered doing a full choreographed routine for your first dance? Or maybe a medley of multiple songs with your father, or a surprise to the bride from the groom and all of the groomsmen. My guest today is Paul Herman, who is a 20-year veteran of dance and theater and choreography. Paul has performed and collaborated with such artists as Cat DeLuna, Alicia Keys, Chris Brown, Sean Paul, Lil Wayne, Sierra, and Flo Rida. Paul has also performed at world-famous Carnegie Hall. Paul and I discussed the benefits of a choreographed first dance, the teamwork aspect of dance lessons, and all the great benefits along with the fun from being able to dance really well at your wedding reception. So let's get down tonight with dance master Paul Herman on the Wedding of Distinction podcast. On the Zoom line, I have my buddy, Mr. Paul Herman. And before we get to Paul, how many times have you been to somebody's wedding and the bride and groom had their very special first dance, that moment, and they just kind of awkwardly danced like Frankenstein, you know what I mean? It just was an awkward moment. This guy can help, and in fact, Paul and I work together. We do bar and bat mitzvahs together. He's one of my party motivators. He gets out there. He's awesome. But Paul Herman, welcome to the Wedding of Distinction program. How you doing?
Doing fine, young man. It's a pleasure to actually be here with you, and I actually talking about that experience on the dance floor. It is always something to remember. I know it always starts off maybe a little awkward at the beginning because, you know, it's something always new for a lot of individuals, but then towards the end, it obviously turns out to be an amazing experience. And I just enjoy that process, seeing something grow in front of me.
Oddly enough, Paul, from what I know as a professional wedding DJ of 35 years, and I've done thousands of weddings, so I've been witness to thousands of first dances. There are many times that moment is the very first time that the bride and groom have actually had a slow dance, or one of the very first times they've actually slow danced as a couple. So let's talk about choreography. Let's talk about something prepared and rehearsed and how it can enhance a wedding reception.
Well, I think the first thing, you know, that I always, you know, recommend when it does come time to moments like that is that you obviously want to make it, you know, memorable. You know, I know that a lot of times, like you said, you know, that's probably their first time actually like having more of a very intimate dance together where they focus on each other versus, you know, just like social dancing, you know, and then on top of that, they're doing it in front of hundreds, probably even thousands of people. So I know I could just imagine, you know, the butterflies that are going through them. That's why it's, you know, it's highly recommended that, you know, you obviously hiring a choreographer or someone, a movement coach to kind of give you guys, you know, a few moves, you know, or even choreography. But that process starts off typically, you know, there's always one person in the group that really wants it more than the next, to be honest with you, right? And you know, it's at first, you know, the other individual kind of drags their feet and they're just there being supportive. But through that process, you kind of get to know the both bride and groom, and you kind of just go through like the steps of understanding like what it is to get choreography, like to memorize stuff. You're gonna have homework. You're gonna have to remember the steps. You have to
Right.
leave. Come back to the studio. It could be one session, it could be two, it could be three, it could be several sessions. But I feel like every time I've ever done it, I always start off with the setting the expectation. What are they looking to truly get? Some people want a full blown performance,
Right.
and then other individuals like, look, we just want to have a good 1 and 2 minutes on the dance floor together, and then we're going to invite everyone onto the dance floor.
Well,
So
we'll get to that. We're going to break it down into a couple of different segments. Let's start with just a classic first dance with some moves and maybe a little hint of ballroom steps and stuff like that. Let's start there.
yeah. How does that choreography play out?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And, what's a typical, let's say the bride and groom come to you and say, hey, Paul, I just want to do like 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes on the dance floor, a little cha-cha action here, something like that. What are some of the things that you can recommend for something a little bit more traditional?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the first thing I would always recommend is for them to have a reference. Having a reference is always important. Being able to, reference a video, reference something that they've probably seen before, or even it could be a picture in a sense. It'd be like, we want to look this clean, we want to look this sharp, we want to have turns, we want to have more floor work, we want to have more. I want her to sit down, and what we try to do at that point in time is create the actual performance. And the performance could be from the minute they walk together. It could be, the bride sitting down, the groom walking over to her. Once we create that concept, that vision, we then grow off of that. And we then figure out what are some of the traditional movements that they would want to put in there. We find out what's some of the movements that resonate with them, that are comfortable. At first, one of the things that I like to do is I like to play music and watch the couples actually just move within their own selves, like just kind of figuring out like what sits well with them, what would they naturally do. Once I get to see how they naturally move, then I can kind of, already guess what type of movement should be within the choreography, versus just saying, look, we're going to do this, and it doesn't really work out. So seeing what they do first, kind of getting them, getting some of the butterflies out of their system, having them kind of have that creative movement time for themselves. And then from there, we kind of, work on the vocabulary and putting it together.
It makes a world of sense because some people are just not capable of certain moves or certain rhythms, I would imagine. So now let's talk something a little bit more elaborate. They want to do like Thriller. Something really choreographed.
It's funny you say that. There was a couple that I work with closely, dear friends of mine from college, and they wanted a whole Michael Jackson, routine. The husband, in a sense, good friend of mine. He was very, into the whole MJ thing. He actually got himself the MJ jacket, red Thriller jacket, and he actually wore it during that performance. And he always talked about it. But I think when it comes to those larger performances, typically, the individuals that are requesting that, they've seen something, they're inspired, so I'm always, loving those types of moments, because I love when people are inspired through movement. Then from there, I say, where did you find that inspiration? Show me exactly what it is. So we kind of go through that same process. And then from there, I kind of set the expectation of like what that's going to look like. Is it 2 minutes? Is it 1 minute? Is it 3 minutes of choreography is a long time if you haven't danced before. In that type of session, I probably would truly find out, how long have the bride and groom been dancing? Have they ever taken a dance class? In the first type of a session with the more beginner group, I probably would ask that question, but more on a smaller scale. Now I would really break down rhythms and patterns and texture, because obviously at that point in time, you're putting on performance, and it's more than just, memorizing some steps at that point in time.